So welcome, everyone. Good to see you and good to have this opportunity to practice together. Today, we are responding to His Eminence Garchen Rinpoche's really beautiful message to the worldwide Sangha. And it was really quite interesting. And in particular, we're going to respond to the first part of his message, in which he said, you don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to do anything special. You don't have to learn a special new practice. Practice the 4 foundations of mindfulness and discuss them with each other. And this was quite a special point, in the sense that when we look at the activities of a Buddha, the Buddha comes, the Buddha teaches, we receive the Dharma, and then the Buddha leaves the body. We call it the parinirvana, into enlightenment, but leaving the body. And this is so that the students have to become independent. So in saying, practice the 4 foundations of mindfulness, he's telling us exactly how to respond to the hope and fear that naturally arises when a great teacher is aging, and then pointing us towards become your own teacher. When we discuss it with each other, we're learning how to use the Dharma that has been given to us and rely upon that, becoming independent of the great teacher. So I will talk for a while, we'll do a guided meditation, and then we'll have some discussion, and then the closing prayers, dedication, and then questions. So the 4 foundations of mindfulness are in the Anapanasati Sutra, which we have studied with His Holiness Chetsen Rinpoche's Sharvasti teachings, but they're focused upon, again, in a longer sutra by the Buddha called the Satipatthana Sutra. And they're interpreted from many, many perspectives, and they're practiced from many perspectives and many contexts. So I'm inviting you to look at hope and fear from the perspective of the 4 foundations of mindfulness as we move through them. So they can be looked at as deconstructing, grasping, and desire, observing and then deconstructing, grasping, and desire. They can be practiced as a method of understanding impermanence, understanding emptiness. They can be practiced as a doorway to Tonglen, and they can be practiced as a path to liberation. And each of the 4 contains all of the other 3. So each of them are profound in their own way and encompassing, when there is a close and subtle practice of them, all of the other 3 mindfulnesses. So if we look at what arises when someone is experiencing ill health, someone that's dear to us, or when we're experiencing ill health, and not only friend or relative, but a close animal companion, we can see that there is some aspect of hope and fear that arises. We hope that they will stay. We hope that they don't experience suffering. We want them to stay. And we fear that they're leaving. We fear that we are experiencing illness and it might get worse, and we fear that we're dying. So there's that quality of hoping for wellness, fearing death and dying, or increased suffering. And this is natural and normal. It's an emotional condition that arises because we're attached to our own self and the comfort of our own self. And it can play on repeat through our minds. Doctor calls with a diagnosis. We hope the treatment works. We fear the treatment isn't going to work. But what becomes even more interesting as we look into this as Buddhist practitioners is we see that whether it's hope or fear, there's suffering attached. The hope is painful and the fear is painful. So then we look at how to practice through this aspect of suffering, and how Rinpoche is recommending right now, and which is an extraordinarily beautiful practice, is the 4 foundations of mindfulness. So if we start with the simplest connection to mindfulness of the body, the simplest connection is experiencing our body as it is right now in the present moment. And what is beautiful about this practice is that it brings us back from all of the mental elaboration into the present moment using the senses of the body. For instance, my feet are on the ground. I'm sitting on something that is flexible and comfortable. The temperature in the room is pleasant. So when I look at the actual sensations of my body right now, in this exact moment, that is where my mind is. It's not on the hope and fear about any illness that I or loved ones are experiencing. So the first quality is bringing us into the present moment. Then when we deepen our investigation, we look at the body is, because it's alive, destined to experience sickness, old age, and death. The body is impermanent. So here we're moving into understanding the nature of what is. The nature of anything that is born is that it dies. Anything that comes together dissolves. And this can be done organ by organ. It can be done in terms of your physical age, remembering that you have changed since you were a 5-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 25-year-old, and it can be done moment to moment. So we're using mindfulness of the body to progress into understanding impermanence. And if we look at it even more subtly, we're inviting ourselves, just as we have through our investigations of the Heart Sutra, to see the emptiness of the body. So it's not in any way simple, this invitation of mindfulness of body. And from the perspective of hope and fear, when we have a diagnosis and we go into our own body, we might directly experience the treatment, look at hope and fear arising and letting go as they arise. There are limitless ways of working with this. But they lead in fairly quickly to mindfulness of feelings. Even as I was saying, there's a pleasant temperature in the room. When we open mindfulness of feelings is recognizing pleasant, unpleasant feelings that arise. And they arise relative to our sensory experiences and any object of mind. So we think of our loved one when they're well, a pleasant experience arises. We think of our loved one if they're suffering, an unpleasant feeling arises. And we see how the complexity of feelings can move to hope or fear, as well as myriad emotions. But they come back down to pleasant and unpleasant. So mindfulness of feelings is looking at what are we experiencing in this moment and seeing how, as we follow the route, it comes down to a direct experience without any elaboration of pleasant or unpleasant. We might experience it physically. We think of the pain of being heartsick, or we might experience it mentally. This can be a wonderful springboard for Tonglen, noticing our own experience, physical and mental, and connecting to others, or that of a loved one and connecting to others. And I invite you to experiment with that or practice with that, not in this session, but notice how it's absolutely a doorway for Tonglen. But particularly because we're looking at hope and fear, what is interesting to see is the quality of grasping that is at the root of hope and fear. And the first layer of complexity that arises, there's a movement from just the simple pleasant and unpleasant to grasping it at a story or grasping at an outcome, a good outcome or a bad outcome. There's a quality of wanting to manage it, essentially for our comfort, managing it for hope that any of the old age, sickness, and death of samsara doesn't occur. Totally unrealistic, but still there's a grasping at wanting to stop time, stop the impermanence, grasping for something that is imaginary comfort. And it's not about the story of what we're trying to get. It's more, can we use mindfulness of feelings to actually identify, see, and dissolve the grasping quality, that movement pull of desire, whether it's a desire to fix or a desire to change. So this comes up in the form of, I want health and vitality. I fear that health and vitality are diminishing. I want my loved one to stay. I fear that they're leaving. I hope they're going to be okay because I don't want to lose them. I fear that they're going to die because I don't want to lose them. I fear that I'm going to die. I'm grasping onto life. All of these different mental events that naturally arise are all aspects of grasping. And through mindfulness of feeling, we can look directly at the grasping, again, see that the grasping is impermanent, and allow that grasping to subside and subtly let go of that. So we have millions of lifetimes that essentially keep us on the wheel of samsara due to this movement of grasping towards the illusory aspects of samsara that we think will bring comfort, and that starting elaborations of mind, elaborations of choices that become karma. If we can see the grasping for what it is, another impermanent sensation, then we are actually, through this investigation and through this situation that we're practicing with, unwinding the wheel of samsara, gradually liberating our mind from the ignorance that propels samsara. So hope and fear are not defects that we shouldn't be feeling. they're an invitation to see this is what has kept us in samsara over and over and over again. Let's look at it right now in this present moment. Let's look at it directly and become our own teachers, as Rinpoche has invited us to become. Now, we've sort of merged into mindfulness of mind, because mindfulness of mind is this discriminating investigation, seeing the impermanence, seeing that all of these elaborations are like clouds, like mist. They're temporary mental events. Oh, please stay. Temporary mental events. I really fear that this physical condition is going to get worse. Temporary mental sensation. So we're bursting the bubble of all the kinds of thoughts that arise during the hope and fear process. And as we're letting go of the thoughts, we're also seeing that root ignorance arising as grasping also is impermanent. If we can stay with that moment of grasping just as it is, it too is impermanent and transitory. So mindfulness of mind is seeing the illusory quality of all the thoughts of hope and fear, and including that very strong perception of grasping. Mindfulness of phenomena takes it to the next subtle level. Mindfulness of phenomena says, okay, in all of these situations, there is a observer and observed, a self looking at hope, a self looking at fear, a mind looking at a mental event. And when we see through mindfulness of phenomena that these two are dependent on each other, then we see, wow, this is actually emptiness, because if one is not there, the other is not there either. They can only be there together. Observed, mental event. Observing mind, mental event. If we let go of any aspect, the other is not there. They're only dependent. And so then we have the invitation to, instead of be struggling with one side or the other side, just drop and drop the whole dynamic, drop the struggle, and abide in the awareness independent of duality. So now I'm going to offer a guided meditation, and after that, invite you to discuss with each other, how do we work with the health challenges of those that are dear to us in terms of what is arising in our own heart-mind, and how do we use that as a path to liberation. So everyone sit in a meditation posture, back straight, shoulders rolled a little back, head tucked in, feet folded. And you can use the message we got that Rinpoche was experiencing illness and the quality of hope and fear that arose when you received that message. You can think of that in the context to any other loved one, human, animal. You can work in the context of yourself if you're experiencing ill health. And let's just sort of look at a process of being right with that, not avoiding it, not bypassing it, not repressing it, but being with everything that arises in our human mind that experiences everything. So let's go right to the sensation of being in our body right now. You could be in a stiff chair, you could be on a cushion, you could be on a soft chair. There's a sensation of how your torso is meeting its seat, how your feet are meeting the ground, the temperature in the room. Just go right into the physical sensations as they are experienced in this particular body. And to the degree that you were able to be with your body, to that degree, all the instructions I just gave on mindfulness of the 4 foundations of mindfulness, they left. Any hope and fear about Rinpoche, that left. To the degree that we can just be present with our body, we are present in this moment of life. There are no shoulds there. We're just exploring how our mind operates and how to use whatever arises in our life as a path to liberation. So let's go to opening this present moment with noticing our feeling state in this present moment. And if you would like to, I invite you to allow the feelings of your feelings, whatever they are, in relation to Rinpoche, in relation to any loved one, in relation to your own body. What feelings do you notice? Now, there are no shoulds. You may not be experiencing strong feelings right now, but I invite you to call to mind a situation with hope and fear arising, just to explore from mindfulness of feeling perspective. You know, this is this practice. We could just as easily say, call to mind anger, call to mind any of the strong emotions, but today we're looking at hope and fear. And in relation, yourself, loved one, Rinpoche, just one, we're not going to every hope and fear in the world. Look directly at that hope and fear and experience it, and then look deeply into it to see that with hope and fear underneath you may be able to see a grasping at an outcome. When we do this kind of meditation, it's like turning a spotlight on one specific quality of mind, not millions of stories, not millions of conditions. I took a vitamin this morning, and I want that vitamin to be effective, to give me more energy, let's say. So try and not expand, but narrow. Where in hope or where in fear? Just choose one of them. Relative to you or loved one. Narrow it down. Where is the hope relative that loved one, or the hope relative you? And then within that, can you see a quality of grasping? And seeing it and observing it, what do you find out? This is also where you're using your shamatha practice, because when you notice your attention shifting from the honing down, from the pinpoint of the spotlight, then you come back because you want to see the subtle states. And this moves into mindfulness of mind. Let's see the actual impermanence of one moment of hope, one moment of fear, one quality of grasping. So again, honing hope or fear, honing relation to self or loved one situation with a magnifying glass till you get to one mental event. Can you see that one mental event as impermanent, dissolving of its own accord? allow this to merge into mindfulness of phenomena. We're looking at one mental event, one moment of impermanence. When it dissolves, that quality of observer and observed doesn't sustain itself. If the observed is gone, the observer is gone. Can you see that moment and rest in that moment? Very subtle. If your mind gets distracted, begin anywhere in the process. So you can see how the 4 foundations of mindfulness truly can become a path to liberation. So I want to keep going with Rinpoche's instructions because he's inviting us to have confidence in our own practice, to see that we know the practice or we know the stages of the practice and can develop the practice leading to our own liberation. So I'm going to give 10 minutes in the discussion rooms, if I can find the discussion rooms, in the breakout rooms, because he particularly says, now discuss this among yourselves. So I invite you to share with each other an insight you had in any part of this exploration of the foundations of mindfulness. And if you choose not to join, I invite you to sit in meditation. But really take in this moment the departure of the Buddhas into parinirvana is so that we become our own teachers, is so that the third jewel, the Sangha jewel, becomes vibrantly alive and fruitful. And as folks are in the discussion group, I'll say a dedication and stop the live stream. Bodhicitta, excellent and precious mind, where it is born, may it arise. Where it is not born, where it is not born, may it arise. Where it is born, may it increase. And may it increase to the great expansion of Rinpoche's mind, the example of his life in terms of bodhisattva activities, and never decline through lifetime after lifetime, benefiting all sentient